Hello guys, Dave Trépanier here, coming in with my Montreal top 8 deck profile. This time around I was good up for 5th place with a 5-1-1 record, and I played a deck that I don't have really a name for it, like we call it like Death and Taxes, like that magic deck, but it's Lair of Darkness focused on Lilith, Lady of Lament. So let's get into it to get clearer as we go on. So the focus of the deck is around Lilith. She gives you options as to the trap cards that you get. So I build the deck with mostly 2 of my normal trap cards, so that I can maximize space and options and usually hit what I want when I use the effect. And for the most important ones, I played 3 ofs because I usually want to have search more than one in the game. So first time around, we reveal 3, you're guaranteed to hit. Second time around, 2 out of 3, most of the time you're gonna hit. So. And I have the Tides of the Brethren in this deck, so notice that most monsters are level 3 Dark Fiends. I did 3 Arima, Wicked Warden. This searches Lair of Darkness, but it's actually better than Lair itself, because Lair has diminishing returns when you get multiples. So with this, you give you the option to have a real card when you already have Lair. When you don't have it, you can just use it to get to Lair. 1 Tour Guide, 1 Sangan, and a pair of Skarm for the other targets. Obviously, this gives you access to your extra deck. This allows you to search your the appropriate hand trap depending on the matchup. For Skarm, it gives you access to either of those, as well as obviously Lilith. I'll show what happens when you ties the Ties of the Brethren in this deck later on. This also serves additional purpose after siding, because I can get in Fiend Griefing, so obviously you can use Griefing, disrupt your opponent, and get back to Lilith on one of those. 1 Diabolos. I want this card. I just wanted to have the access to this card with the 3 Arimas against the matchups that it is impactful. But I do not usually wish to hard draw that card. Today, I never drew it. I searched for it once to attack for game, but that's pretty much. I would play it again, but I would not play more than one, because you prefer having a trap than a 3000 body. But there's some match like it's a pure striker, and cards like these are hard to handle, so you won't have access to it. Next, I played Artifacts, because the best normal trap card that I found out for this deck was Artifact Sanctum. So I chose 2 sites in the Moral Attack. I usually advocate the use of 2 artifacts alongside 3 Sanctums, but in this deck, since you have access to the trap cards that you want, you have easy access to Heavy Storm Duster, so when you draw one of those. And in a deck like this, it's really important that you have options, like at all times. So cards that gives you multiple abilities, like let's say Sanctum, which is either a barrier including links, or it can also destroy a monster in matchups where it applies. And post sideboard, I adapt the number of artifacts with other sideboard artifacts to make sure I have the perfect ratio. But I like 3 of these. Like, it does happen that you draw some, but as I said, you can tutor out Heavy Storm Duster. Destroy one of your artifacts, one of your opponent's cards, sometimes even 2 of your artifacts, it's okay. For hand traps, I played 1 hand trap, and that's Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, because it's usually the most impactful. This deck obviously tries to grind your opponent, and in some matchups, in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, grind matchups are not always determined by the number of cards that both players have, or the resources that they have in their deck. So this severely impairs some of the resources that your opponent is going to have. Let's say if they don't have Kagaris, don't have Dantes, it cripples the amount of resources they're going to have throughout the game, so it can give you an edge. Only one. I do not wish to hard draw this unless I'm playing it's obviously Gookie, but like hand traps when the games go slower are usually less impactful than real traps. But I want to have the one to search from my Sangan, and I adapt this depending on the matchup with the ones that I have in my side. For spells, I play 2 Lairs and 1 Terraforming. 6 felt fine to me. I decided to add Terraforming instead of a 3rd Lair, obviously because when you already have one, you don't want to have another. So if you get Terraforming, you get Arima, you thin 1 Lair out, you like use terraforming, that's 2 cards out of your deck. You have your lair, but there's less lair cards in your deck. So I was pretty happy with that ratio. Let's play 3 times with Brethren. It applies to pretty much every of my level 3 monsters in the deck. What I found out is that Lilith doesn't require lair to be actually good. It requires to not have to tribute herself all the time. So even if you don't tribute your opponent's monsters, if you tribute your monsters that are not Lilith, you get a trap, get another trap during your opponent's turn, and have it. It's better to have like this than having like 9 copies of lair, where it means you're just going to have to tribute your opponent's monsters. So this you have both options if you draw, and they complement each other instead of just being, well, cards that do exactly the same thing. Resolving this on turn 1 is extremely strong. I did it like 5 to 6 times. I dropped one of those games to a pretty good hand, but this worked out. I'm not a fan of this card usually, but in this deck it's pretty important. Gives you the consistency to get to Lilith, as your cards, there's no card in your deck that's more important than Lilith. So you have 3 Allure of Darkness alongside 1 Upstart. Have multiple dark monsters, but you won't have the correct ones, so you can cycle through those. And 3 Pot of Duality, same thing. Don't spell summon a lot in this deck. Then the times that you do, you can take a turn off. Makes it easier to find, like, if you have, let's say, you have Lilith, don't have lair, don't have a monster to benefit from it, like a Remote Lilith. You get the piece that you want. It's a slow deck, makes games slower, so these cards that give you card selections are great. For traps, as I said earlier, 3 Sanctums. When you go first against the deck, it requires the extra deck. Flip this on side to win. 3 back to the front. This allows you to obviously revive your artifacts, but you can revive, let's say, your Lilith to be one of your opponent's monsters. Just extremely versatile. I would play 3 of this again. It's amazing. Next was spot removal. We've got 2 Dynamiscus. Now we're getting to 2 of like more like specialists role, as I call them. So like basically when there's one specific card you want to get rid of, don't want to just wall them for a turn with side. There's one specific threat that you want to get rid of. It's better for it to deal with established threats. 2 Heavy Storm Dusters, I mentioned earlier. This allows me to play more artifacts, with decks that set back obviously. Like that's another kind of specialist card. And then those I had to borrow, I'm terribly sorry. But 2 Infinite Impermanence. Obviously, this card is not the best trap card, but I wanted to have 3 hand traps in my deck. And why I wanted specifically 3 is that against decks that I must have a hand trap, let's say against Goki, if I go first, I don't need a hand trap. That's 50% of the time, 50% left. And by playing 3 of in the deck, you have approximately like 33% chance to draw it. So 33% of that 50% makes approximately it's like 16 and above percent. Good for 50 when you go first, plus 16 when you go second, approximately 66%. So I thought that was fair, like that you would get a percentage that makes you win like 2 out of 3 games. So we're playing best 2 out of 3. This card was great today. It's the trap that you usually don't want to search with Lilith, but it's sometimes the next best thing that you can get off of her. So it just gives like just about the right amount of traps that you could have like in your deck to be able to resolve Lilith throughout the game. For extra deck, obviously you don't get into your extra deck all that often. There's 1 Witch's Apprentice. This is great as can make Tour Guide and Sangan into this, trigger Sangan, get your hand trap, and when this dies, get back your Tour Guide, or when you have Lair of Darkness token, like Torment tokens, you can make this, when she dies, get back a Lilith. So, and since all monsters on the field become dark, if you treat all your monsters, all your monsters have a buff, so this is great, this is amazing. 1 Phoenix, didn't summon it, I'm glad I played it still. It's always a good option. 1 Unicorn, played it once. Obviously gets rid of threats. Did not play Cerberus. Maybe one time I wanted to play it, but it's small in attack, and I want my cards to have additional value, like just not their front value, but usually to hang around, because you can't afford to lose too much cards in the deck that's like control based. I played 1 number 75. Bamboozling Gossip Shadow. Everyone's telling me this card is terrible. I think it's good. Like, I played it twice. One time it got Kaiju, so I assume it was being a nuisance to the opponent. And the other time I treated it myself because I drew Lilith later on. I already had LAIR, and traps were better than it. But at the beginning of the game, I only had Tour Guide, so this was good enough. You can make Tour Guide with Scarm, so you get your Surge. One Darius. There's out 2 problem monsters, such as, let's say, Borload, since you can't really interact with those. Breaksword's great. When you make rank 3s, often Breaksword. Sometimes things happen like you have to do Breaksword, you get Effect Valor, use Lilith, tribute it. It's a dark monster. So. And all of those you can make with Scarm and Surge, like you Lilith from your next turn. 1 Pleiades for, I have 2 artifacts on the board, it's the best rank 5 that you can make. For Waking the Dragon targets, I play 1 Exterior, 1 Ultimate Falcon. I want to play this like some more for True Draco and Trickstar Sky Striker when I think I'm clearly losing. And this for Trickstar Striker, not Trickstar Striker, I mean Pure Striker. And this for Pure Striker when I am winning, just to like tighten my grip of the game. I don't know if I would play 2 again. Like coming back from the event, there was a few Cyber Dragon decks, and since the extra's pretty, like there's tons of space, they probably throw in a Chimera deck Fortress Dragon for when that would come up, because sometimes you side them and they have like a bunch of machines on field. So if that deck ever gets popular, maybe in Montreal seems to be popular. Next for Cherry's target, Kagari, Exalt. I chose Exalt over Firewall. Usually Goki can go through 1 hand trap if they have extenders, but if they have them, like, I mean, so be it. I'd rather hit this. If you hit Firewall too early, you can default like to Gumblar or something. So prefer to try and hit this. Makes it harder. Good players know, like very good players know, like they have a flow chart where they get hand trap there, they know where to go. But most players sometimes make subpar boards when this is hit. So that's the one I chose. Electromite, Pendulum, Double Helix, Dante, and Dragon Buster. So that's the one that I thought were relevant. So yeah. And then for the side deck, I selected 2 artifact, 1 Lancia, 1 Moral Attack to adapt the artifacts that I have in my deck. This is good if you think your opponent could be someone that wants to evenly match you. Like the enter battle phase, you Sanctum with 2 Lancia, so if they activate evenly match, you can chain the effect so that no cards are banished. If it's a matchup where your extra deck's less relevant, I usually keep a side the other one out, get a second Moral Attack in. Next, okay, this is where I never did a deck like this before, but I said 1 Effect Valor, 1 Ash Blossom, 1 Ghost Ogre, and 1 Ghost Bell. Thing is, as I said, I don't want to have too many hand traps in my deck because they're less impactful than normal traps, but I want to have the best one regarding any specific matchup. So if the Reaper in my deck is not the correct one for that matchup, I'm going to side into the one that I think is most relevant. If I play against Goki, or let's say a deck that I know that I really have to stop, like I'll get as many as I can in, which all do, like against Goki, they all can do something. But usually I'm just going to change the Reaper for the one that's more appropriate for me. And since I can search it with ties, can search it with the Sangan access, or if I have a tour guide, I usually get the access if I go first. Going second really depends. Like if it's a matchup that can like Goki, I put more to try and hard draw them. But if it's a deck that we can wait for later to get a card. So, I will play only one. One doubles that I signed in addition against decks that really can't handle it, such as Pure Sky Striker, because against those decks I want to hard draw it. For time, I thought the deck would play slow. I mean, I went to time like twice, but this game that was already winning, I never sided it in, but I won a normal trap that burned. So I don't know if I would play it again, but I thought the idea was pretty interesting. And then I played 2 Finger Gripping. This is amazing. When it does work in a matchup, it's like you use Lilith to either tribute herself or another monster, and you disrupt them, you send Scarm, and then you get back to Lilith or Tour Guide or anything. So Okay, this I don't know if I would play again, but I played 2 Malevolent Catastrophe and 2 Waking the Dragon. So what I want to do with this is that I want to use Lilith against matchups that like let's say Pure Striker, and reveal 2 Catastrophe and 1 Waking the Dragon. So now what do? You want to jamming waves the back row. Like if it's Waking Dragon, probably you lose. But if you try and attack and it's Catastrophe, probably you lose. So I want to put them in that weird dichotomy. But I don't know if I would play those again. But it was interesting in theory. So just wanted to show you about the Ties of Brethren, what you can do. Let's say you have. Okay. Just get. Okay. Let's say you have Skarm. Go normal Skarm, activate Ties, resolves. You summon Sangan and Lilith. Then Skarm will die because you have non-burning Abyss monster on the board. You can use Lilith, tribute to Sangan, reveal 3 trap cards. Most of the time, you reveal to your opponent 3 Sanctum, so you hit a Sanctum, so you can sight them, or Morale if it doesn't affect them during their turn. Sangan will trigger, get you your hand trap. Game 1 is going to be Ghost Reaper. Post side can be anything else. And then during the end phase, Skarm will trigger, getting you either your tour guide or give you a Lilith. Let's say if you intend to tribute, you don't have LAIR, you want this to tribute herself. Or you have your replacement Lilith, you have this, disrupt them, you will have another trap that could be like back to the front, Dynamic Skiffs, anything, and you already have your follow-up over here. So this really made like the connection between all those monsters, so that you have strong plays that do not overlap, like let's say playing 9 Lair of Darkness cards or something. It gets like more you get more consistency, and you get more ways that your plays can go, and they don't all do the same thing. So with control decks, I think you won't have the versatility to handle your opponent like the way the game is shaping up. So I hope that was a good listening for you guys. If you have anything, just can try and message me like forums or Facebook, whatever. If you have questions about the deck, I'd be glad to answer. I think it's pretty interesting. It could be improved on, and I think it could be maybe a series contender if we just keep moving forward with it. Thank you guys. Bye.
I feel like Usain in the cheetah print. Talk fresh game, I don't need a minute. R.I.P. the game, I need a minute. Okay, let's proceed with it.